In this episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to Luther, the Fallen Son. So let's pick that sun right back up and get into Luther, the Fallen Son. Now, I don't know why I even watched this movie. I think there was a streak in 2023 when I became, really into the game of movies, really into seeing what's coming out and just adding everything that was coming out at the time. I think there was a decent trailer for Luther the Fallen Son. I looked into this multiple times. Do you need to have watched anything in order to watch Luther the Fallen Son? And the research told me that I don't. I don't need to watch anything going into this movie. And then I learned after watching it, there's a whole freaking TV show about Luther. So I don't know. I feel like that experience didn't really affect my viewing of the movie either way, but that was kind of a shock to see that. I guess it's some sort of popular British show. There is some nods to some other British shows, which I'll get into later throughout this movie. I feel like that didn't really affect it that much. But overall, on Luther the Fallen Son, I just thought this was kind of another action thriller movie. There wasn't really a ton that makes it stand out in my mind, if I'm being honest, and they're either good nor bad. Well, I feel like the plot, we'll attack a lot during this review and reaction, and I think it's fair to say that because I think to mention that TV show, I think this was just a Black Mirror ripoff. Like they watched that one, what's that episode called? Shut Up and Dance, and they tried to go further upon that, but some of the stuff that happens in this movie is just outright really stupid and really convenient. And the villain, Andy Serkis, feels pretty inevitable and just unstoppable. And there's just, I feel like we waste some time with Luther in the jail. Why does he need to go to jail? I feel like that kind of just adds into another aspect of the movie that's not really that interesting. But I was watching this on a flight to a vacation destination, and I will say I was decently entertained throughout. So kind of a back and forth battle in my mind. We'll see where I end up scoring this movie. Hook you for later on in the review, but. Here I am reviewing Luther the Fallen Son 3 years later. Would I recommend this movie to people? Probably not, unless you're a big fan of the TV show. I feel like you can do a lot better with some crime thrillers out there, but overall, we'll see how I get to it on the score. Let me see if I have any other overall thoughts. So I do like Idris Elba in this role. I do think he has some aura to him as this kind of John Wick type character. The ending I feel drove me a little bit nuts, and we'll get into that for sure in the reaction. And yeah, that's all I really have before we get into the thoughts and reactions. So wouldn't really recommend this movie for anybody, but we're going to review it anyway because this is a channel of fairness. I feel if we review things well, we also have to review things poorly. And I'm just going to review every movie I watch. I don't care if this gets 0 reviews. I do care. Please watch this video. But, I report on the facts. If anyone's ever interested in watching Luther the Fallen Son, I got you on this review. Don't watch it. I feel unless you're a big fan of the Luther show. But let's get into my thoughts and reactions about the film. Starting it out with a random character who is blackmailed into being murdered. And right away, this is kind of the Shut Up and Dance gone wrong, where it's this teenage or young 20s male. He probably has some incriminating photos or videos of him, jacking off. It is what it is. But we've already seen this plot kind of explored in the Black Mirror episode that probably came out about 10 years before this movie even came out. So I feel that's a big part of this review for me is they kind of went with the Black Mirror idea, they're trying to expand upon it, but it really just didn't get anywhere that too interesting in my opinion and just skipped a bunch of steps, which we'll get to. But essentially he gets staged into being to trying to help in order, first of all, he's working a shift, and you can tell that this sort of villainous figure on the phone has a massive control over these characters because this guy's working his shift and he's I need you here in 15 minutes. He's I'm on the clock, bro. And he's well, what's going to happen to your mom, or I'm going to show your mom if you get if you don't show up. And he's going to drop his broomstick and just run out of the place, sneak out of work. So it's oh shit, these guys must be really in trouble. And that is a theme of this movie they try to get to is fear itself is more than death. And I'm curious to see what the audience thinks of this. If anyone's watching this review, let me know down below in the comments. Would you want your biggest, darkest secret revealed, or would you rather die? I feel it varies, but there's no way that this many people wanted to fucking eat shit before revealing their secret. We only have one life, guys, not to get too philosophical. This guy clearly has something that is being hidden from us. He gets blackmailed into being murdered. It is what it is. That's the big start to this movie. And turns out he's one of like hundreds of thousands, seemingly. So we'll get to that. We get to the crime scene, and this is when we first meet Luther. Kind of a cold open to Luther. You know, I feel like we could use maybe a more proper introduction to him. Just not being a fan of the show, like I mentioned, don't really know his like background, what he's like at all, what his type of character is, who he is, whatever. But we meet him at the crime scene. Him and his partner I do like the partner in this as well. Dermot Crowley plays his like, you know, older partner who helps out, is like kind of a goofball and at times, and it's kind of just like understands Luther. I do like their dynamic. That isn't a positive to the movie. But when you make this mistake, never promise anything that you can't deliver on for a fact. And he promises this young man's mother, who we saw get murdered, that he will find the person. No, I thought this was going to be a long-term payoff, because I thought, you know, here comes Luther to just track down this guy. It'll be our woman or network, whatever. It'll be a big reveal throughout the movie, and then it's like the mom will come back later on and be like, "You promised," like probably like 3/4 of the way into the movie, and he's like, "All right, I got to do this for her." But yeah, this will get brought right back up. So yeah, promising to find him when you have no inclinations of what happened at all. You know, it's confidence. I respect the confidence, but like, terrible move, in my opinion, to actually do that. We learn a little bit more about Andy Serkis. Now, I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts about him being kind of out in the open. I think it does fit this movie well for what they were trying to go for. Him being automatically revealed as the villain. I do like that aspect of, like, instead of trying to guess who it is, it's just him. And we see him like cozy up to the victim's mother, and then we see him lure all these people into a mansion, and he's got all their loved ones hanging. This was a dark movie as well, where he's got all of his loved ones hanging from the roof, and then he lights the place on fire, has a mask like switching between other faces. Like, this guy's evil, bro. And this is why you watch this movie, like, if people are out there like this, like, we're in trouble. We're cooked, like, because people really are this evil. So he has the loved ones walking in. They're all staring at their loved ones dead, hanging from the ceiling. And then he lights the place on fire, and the guy's just, like, laughing with his face switcher, which was like, why does he like this? You know, we never really learned why he's like this. Maybe he's just an evil spirit. I guess that's, like, what we're supposed to believe. But Andy Serkis, man, I don't want to fuck with that guy. We get to a prison sequence, and Luther's been arrested for past transgressions, which, without having watched the TV show, maybe that's the one thing, or if, like, we don't know, I haven't seen him, like, beat the shit out of anybody, you know, abuse an investigation, whatever, all the things they say about him. Essentially, they just Serkis just puts him away to, like, get him out of the picture. That's like a side plot for, like, the first half of the movie. Him in jail, which I didn't find that interesting. I feel like that kind of falls flat in his face, especially for someone like me just tuning in now. I feel like we didn't really need that part of the movie, and this could have been a little bit shorter. But it is what it is. And instead of, you know, doing his time, abiding, he's going to break out because he needs to solve this case. He made that woman a promise. Why would this warden agreed to this transfer idea where he's like, release the whole prison on me, I'm gonna fight them, and then I'll get transferred, and you don't have to deal with me anymore? Like, is he really that much of a headache? I guess having a former, you know, there probably are other former cops in that jail, realistically. But Luther, I guess, has done a lot of work putting those people in jail, so it's just not worth the headache. Where we're gonna send Luther out in a escape, or not an escape, but on a transfer, quote unquote, and that's it. And like, I feel like the warden was very amenable to Luther, I guess, like, respect for police officers. But why would you ever agree to that, where, like, things could go so wrong with this prison riot, which it seemingly does, but I guess the guys faked it who were doing the first part of it. So there's that. It was insane, though, to watch him kind of run away. I thought there'd be a little more fighting, but he eventually obviously lives alive, comes out of it alive. Not many, and other people die, but, like, no one really that important. You know, it's just the jail background characters. Eventually, Luther gets out from his friends. You know, he's hanging out. Of course, they intercept the prison transport, like prison break style, and now he finally is able to track down Andy Serkis' character through a back room into, like, a strip club or a tattoo place. You know, he got a radio call from Serkis, which Serkis has some balls as a villain, just, like, calling out Luther this whole time on the radio, which could have easily been confiscated. And we learned that the villain is responsible for, like, thousands of bodies, which I guess at that point he probably just feels like immortal. See, I'm writing this script for you guys. I'm just making inferences. None of this was actually stated throughout the movie. But they have a confrontation in Times Square. Obviously, this is very early on in the movie, so you're like, no way, this is going to be, like, the final confrontation. He's obviously going to get away. My man's has people on top of the rooftop with GoPros attached to their chest, and they all agree to jump at the same time. Like, so really, this whole movie is thematically based on, would you rather die or have your biggest secret come out? What could possibly be so bad that all of these people agree we're going to jump off a roof and film it in front of all of our families to see our face? I think the GoPro is like on their face. It wasn't even on the ground. And they're all just hanging. No one even gets the idea to run away. There's no like imminent threat of him, I guess, releasing the secrets. That's it. But he's just chilling down there in the, I think it's Piccadilly Square. Why would you agree to do that? Like, I feel like this is where we lose it a little bit, where it's like we're really leaning on this idea of fear being more than death, which I am battling against right now, which I don't think would be, a big, I wouldn't do this. I'd be like, release that shit. I want to live. But all these people, there's like 10 people that jump off the roof. They jump down, distract Luther, distract the police who are following Luther, which is another annoying subplot of how the police want Luther more in jail than they want the guy who's responsible for like multiple deaths. It is what it is. The police were there basically following Luther, and then he is following this guy, but now that there's people dropping everywhere and shit's going batshit, it doesn't even matter, and he gets away. Well, he runs away, and Luther chases him, and we get to one of the dumbest parts of the movie where we have a confrontation between Serkis's character and Idris Elba's character, Luther, in the railroad station. Luther's on top of him. He's saying, arrest him, and then you can arrest me right after. Like, Luther's actually very amenable to just wanting to catch this criminal, and then he'll be done. But the police officer is also a fan of Luther, but decides to go after Luther first and not the villain. And then, of course, Serkis is able to just run away. Stupid plot. Like, why would you not get the guy who's not a cop? Like, even then, you have an affinity for Luther, doubling down on that. Like, that's a very stupid plot decision, in my opinion. It's just like, okay, conveniently he'll get away. First of all, by people willing to jump off the roof, and then this police officer stabs Luther instead. Come on, bro. And we learn a little bit more about how he's able to get these people reveal their secrets, where of course now he goes after this other character, what's her name, Rain. He goes at not the star of Wicked, that's the actress. He's going after her daughter through Bluetooth speakers. Now if my man could talk to this Bluetooth speaker I have over here, I'm done, bro. Like, you got it. Like, I feel like that's crazy. You can just connect to Bluetooth. Well, I guess it's realistic, but like hacking Bluetooth, imagine, do you think like, I don't want to get into this maybe, but the world could like just hack into our Bluetooths right now? Is it possible? I don't know. But so Andy Serkis' character has figured it out. If he can get into Bluetooth, he's hacking into watches, he's hacking into TVs, revealing secrets. It's over, bro. This guy's literally has everyone under his thumb, which is crazy. I have to say, I am a person who gives everyone a fair chance. DCI Rain was acting very irrationally, especially in like the first like 4/5 of this movie. Thank God we have Luther, who like has a good head on his shoulders, doesn't have fucking rats in his organization spilling everything out to Serkis, which by the way, Serkis of course has a secret on one of the people in the investigation group, whatever. But DCI Rain, I didn't really care for her character that much. I feel like she was overreactionary, and then it's really like we're supposed to be caring about a lot about her and her daughter at the end, whatever. I don't know. I didn't really like her character that much. Archie is the rat inside the police department. And this was a W. Luther moment where he sets up his boy, Dermot Crowley's character, his partner in crime, to be watching over Andy Serkis' wife, who we find out he tried to burn in a house fire. She knows where he's going because she can't talk, and he talks to her as like I did like that part of like she's like the secret wall that he can just talk to and tell everything about, but then she uses it against him, and then he knows she's using that against him, so he sends Archie to go get him. But this is a big gotcha bitch moment where they get Archie, and Dermot Crowley's waiting for him right there in the room. And then he says about his secret, it wasn't even that bad, and then kills himself with the needle instead of killing the wife like he was supposed to. Obviously, he wasn't going to do it with them all in the room, but it wasn't that bad. Then you kill yourself. Okay, then. Like, I didn't really care for this character, but again, what type of secrets are we talking here? I really would like to know about that. I guess I'm just not that secretive of a person. I don't have deep, dark secrets, whatever. So Archie's dead. Good. And this essentially, the last third of this movie turns into DCI Rain and Luther going on a solo quest where Luther's able to finally talk some sense into this woman, saying, he's not going to actually free your daughter if you bring me to him. He's just getting me out of the way because I'm the only one who can actually do anything fucking effectively in this case. And we get down to it where they're tracking through snow in Switzerland, which was crazy, or Norway somewhere. I don't know how he got out there in a Jeep. Everything's freezing, but it's this underground bunker where he's running an online game show to watch people die, which is another Black Mirror plot, but I believe the Black Mirror episode of that came out in 2025, so maybe you have some credence there, creators of Luther Fallen Sun. But we have the humiliation people all trying to see the deaths of people, and of course, now that DCI Rain and Luther are both falling into his capture, they make two very meaty suspects, or what's the word I'm looking for, entertainers on this first live stream. So Rain, in order to get her daughter back, has to stab Luther. Luther's like, come on, give me a stab, brother. Like, it's all good. You gotta do what you gotta do. She stabs him. The daughter should be freed, right? But no, because of course Andy Serkis is evil. We got a lot more to get to. So this was my favorite scene of the movie, when Luther turned the tide on Serkis, not just through physical force. Oh, wait a second for that. Through mentally challenging the viewers. He's like, we got all your guys' IP addresses. And, this guy grinds his teeth. He grinds his teeth, which embarrasses Andy Serkis' character. This is my favorite scene. And all the people, you can see them all just shut their laptop, turn it off, go back to work, what they're doing, whatever they're doing. All these people have secrets too, probably, and now they have the IP addresses. They don't. But it was a good bluff by Luther. Gets them all to stop watching the TV, makes the live stream show irrelevant, and then we just descend into chaos. This is a classic crime thriller where the last 10 to 15 minutes just has to be nonstop action, insanity. Andy Serkis burns down the place while DCI Rain and her daughter try to fight to get out with this other Bosnian guy, and then Luther goes after Serkis. Ends up underwater. Long time to be underwater. I know there you have some extra adrenaline when you're drowning potentially, but this was a long time, and somehow Andy Serkis' character seemingly passes away underwater. Which, by the way, there's just thousands of bodies underwater where Serkis' character is. He can't swim up because there's too many fucking bodies where he's trying to swim up, which is crazy. And I guess maybe he's been running this game show for a while. I guess I hadn't thought about that part. But of course, Idris Elba's even further down. Luther's even further down. But the divers come and get him just in the nick of time, somehow to save him. And he solves the crime. Of course, the woman get out of the place alive. Didn't really care for their part. I wanted to see the daughter live because she's just a 15-year-old who didn't deserve to be brought into this. But everyone makes it out. The good guys win. Andy Serkis' character is dead. I don't know what happens to the Bosnian guy. But looks like we're headed towards another Luther movie where he gets to talk to some special agent and they have to arrest him again before that, of course. Really? The man just solved the biggest crime probably in England history. I don't know what the numbers are on that, but there is at least 100 people implicated in this. They freed so many hostages. There were so many dead bodies, including the people who jumped off the building, were under this pond. It was crazy. So yeah, looks like we're headed towards another Luther sequel. Will I watch it? Depends on if I grind. If I'm really watching every movie that comes out every single week, if I ever get to that point, then I'll fucking watch a Luther sequel. I feel like there's worse movies you can do out there, but really this isn't worth your time in any way. I'm giving this a 6.8. It's just, it falls flat in a little bit in the plot, and I feel like the plot is at least an essential part of the movie that you can at least try to get right. And I'm not trying to be mean, but when that part's kind of just, it's it feels like we're grasping at straws and everything's conveniently happening, and the best possible case scenario happens, and Andy Serkis' character feels a little bit overpowered. It's just I don't know, it's hard to really get into the trenches with the characters when there's not really realistic stakes at hand here. So that's why I'm going to give this movie a 6.8. Decently compelling. There is some fun scenes, like I mentioned. I did the first part of the ending. The second part of the ending where he's underwater and shit was crazy. Him having to be arrested again is annoying, and then now he's going to become this commando investigator. Fine, we have to get a sequel for Luther, but yeah, kind of a middling movie in my opinion. I wouldn't really recommend to anybody besides maybe if you watch the Luther TV show. People thought this was an abomination. I saw some comments. I don't know. I haven't watched the Luther TV show, so you'll have to let me know on that. This is, comparing this movie to other movies reviewed so far, this is the 110th movie reviewed on the Dubcast channel. This is number 87 of the 110 movies so far, so we do have 3 other movies at a 6.8. I think this is the third of those 6.8s. Comparing this movie to some actors: Idris Elba, we had him in American Gangsters, which I gave an 8.1, Extraction 2, which I gave a 7.7, and Molly's Game, which I gave a 7.6, making this the new worst Idris Elba movie. Sorry, brother. And this loses out to Training Day, 9.1, Shot Caller, 7.9, The Guilty, 7.7, Good Time, 7.6, and does beat out Manhunter at a 6.7, so this is now the second worst crime thriller on the channel. So yeah, that's Luther the Fallen Son. Did you guys watch this movie? I would be very surprised if this video gets more than 2 views, but you know, we review everything I do, every movie I watch, so let me know your thoughts down below in the comments if you watch this movie and what you think of the sequel potentially coming and what you thought of this movie. Am I overreacting to some of the plot things? Did you have a good time? I had an okay time. I know it's kind of mediocre in my opinion. So there you go on Luther the Fallen Son. Coming up on the Dubcast, we have more movie reviews. The next movie review will be Marty Supreme. And then after that, we have a couple older movies probably coming. I do want to get out there into the theaters and see some of these newer movies. It's just a timing thing. It's the summer, everything's busy, everything's back. I was busy over the last couple of weeks, so I appreciate your patience staying with me through that. And we have TV shows returning. It's summertime, so everyone is dropping. We have House of the Dragon this Sunday. Live stream. I have a guest locked in for that. Super excited for that. So it should be super fun on the House of the Dragon episode recap live stream. So be there after the episode for that. Silo comes back at the beginning of July. I will be doing longer episodes on Silo, most likely by myself, unless I find someone who was willing to tango on that one. And then we also have other shows, The Walking Dead, Dead City, Ted Lasso, and The Bear. The last season of The Bear is coming out, so maybe expect some short-term content on that stuff. Maybe a Bear tier list once I'm finished with that, but it's the summer of TV, as always. They always drop this stuff on us. Sports, we'll be chilling for a while. We'll cover the McGregor-Holloway card with Shane, hopefully. But besides that, just waiting for football to come back, and we'll see you for that. So if any of this stuff sounds interesting, please feel free to subscribe, leave a comment, like, dislike, do what you got to do. Appreciate you sticking along for the whole video, and as always, be easy, y'all.